welcome aboard Radio Aviation Excellence, the Wright Flyer. I'm your captain, Randy Wright, and I want to thank you for tuning in to this solo flight special edition of our state-of-the-art radio program. Folks, I want to talk about Congresswoman Frederica Wilson. I know this is something that's come up to the epicenter and surface of everything time and again, and it's really kind of an important issue that we need to discuss because even though we here at the Wright Flyer have been very critical of Trump at times, it's always been justified. With respect to her, this Florida congresswoman that is essentially going out there and making a complete and utter fool of herself, it's not proper. Basically, the reason I say this is when you stop and think about it, what Frederica Wilson is attempting to do here is play to the baser elements of the tried and true tactic, even though it's a threadbare one, or very tired one, of divide and conquer in order to gain political points. She's literally attempting to gain political points for what it is that she believes. And what she believes is not any way, shape, or form connected with any type of reality. It's certainly not what is accepted by mainstream culture or society, but it shows a glaring aspect of what the frothing at the mouth Fabian socialist leftists have been attempting to bring into fruition here in the heart of the land of the free and the home of the brave for generation after successive generation. Essentially, what they are attempting to do at this current juncture in time, and what they have essentially been trying to do over the course of the past 150 plus years now, ladies and gentlemen, is to sow the seeds of dissension within the body politique of these United States of America in order to go forth with a message that is deleterious, divisive, and ugly, so that they can tear down all that we hold near and dear in this constitutionally endowed federalist representative republic of ours. Basically, it always comes down to the fact that they are the blame America first crowd. But there's something more insidious about this, and to really go through that, we need to discuss what it is that rests at the heart of it. What is the basis of this brouhaha that has captured the attention of the rank and file of the graduates of Pavlov's School of Journalism for the salivating mainstream media over the period of this past week? And what that comes down to is it's all about these few Green Berets who paid the ultimate price in defending the rights and liberties that we all enjoy in our individual capacity as United States citizens because of a phone call that the president made in order to attempt to console one of the fallen Green Berets' mother at this time. And the tradition has always been that the president usually just writes a letter because these are exceedingly difficult phone calls to make. Nobody really wants to make that kind of phone call. It reminds me of the whole issue of the chaplain and the grievance officer, basically, walking up to the home of the family of the slain soldier to let them know that their loved one perished in the line of duty. And it's always difficult. It's always been a central part of the culture that irrespective of whatever political slant or leanings that the fallen soldier may have had, we honor their service. And that has always been the case in these United States of America. We've always held our fighting men, and now women as well, to a very high standard of regard, and rightly so, because these people truly do make the best and brightest among the best and brightest here on God's green earth. But essentially what Frederica Wilson was doing is she was eavesdropping on what should have been a truly intimate conversation between the commander-in-chief of the armed forces of these United States of America and the mother of this fallen or slain Green Beret, and then went forth and said that the president was insensitive and was hateful, and, all of these usual things that the frothing at the mouth Fabian socialist leftists always try to do. It's a play right out of the playbook of Rules for Radicals that was essential, or that is essentially the Bible for the Fabian Society, written by that big jerk, for lack of a better term, Saul Alinsky. And that is, they're trying to freeze or capture a certain element of this and make it to where it applies to just this one element, as opposed to paying attention to the overarching picture and the things that ultimately matter with all of this. And forgive all the camera movements, folks. Just trying to get the right angle here. This is the first time I've done a live broadcast with my mobile device, so I'm playing with this. This is new for me, and it's going to make things a bit easier for me in the long run, I think, as soon as I get the hang of this. But anyway, what Frederica Wilson did is she went out there and attempted to make political hay out of this. It's part of that whole thing that we have oftentimes attempted to warn you, our cherished listening passengers and audience members, about throughout the course of the past 2+ years that we've been flying you over the friendly airways, is that the left always goes forth and attempts to politicize everything. It's because they have an insidious agenda that clearly has no place in an open and honest, but above all free society like that of the United States of America. But with respect to all of this, we see that Secretary Kelly, General Kelly, who is a Gold Star family member himself, meaning he lost a family member, in this case his son, 7 years ago in Afghanistan, he was trying to say that it's disgusting that this congresswoman would go and essentially, engage in a taboo that politicizes something that is never supposed to be politicized. Never supposed to be politicized. And that just speaks volumes about just how heartless the left in modern America truly is, because they don't care about the things that matter to each and every one of us in our individual capacity as United States citizens. They have these ulterior motives that are reprehensible, and clearly there's no other way to more aptly describe this than that, and they go forth and attempt to do all of this to undermine all that we hold sacred in the land of the free and the home of the brave. And again, it always comes down to a sense of hatred for the time-honored values, traditions, and institutions of this great nation of ours. And when we stop and think about it, examining it under the totality of the circumstances and with a modicum of objectivity, it opens up a door for us all to see exactly what rests at the heart, souls, and minds of these frothing-at-the-mouth Fabian socialist leftists, and it's an ugly picture. It's a picture that shouldn't come to the epicenter. It's something that should never be accepted in society. And what's so funny about all of this is that Congresswoman Wilson, who is a congresswoman out of the great Sunshine State of Florida, is essentially going forth here and proclaiming that she has compassion for members of the United States Armed Forces. Yet, when we, carefully scrutinize her voting record when it comes to military matters and issues of great importance to the military, she has been on the wrong side of history each and every time. So, in fact, what she's doing is she's being completely and totally intellectually disingenuous. She is attempting to paint herself as something which she is not, and it is, again, a disgusting thing to see. It's an ugly thing to see. And unfortunately, we see that this occurs with the frothing at the mouth Fabian socialist leftists more often than not. And that's in and of itself a bit of a tragedy. It speaks to just how far we have fallen from having a sense of a greater good in the land of the free and the home of the brave. And that's all due, thanks in no small part, to the twin cancerous doctrines of political correctness and moral relativism, which the left has latched on to for generation after successive generation, and they've only been doubling down on this. They've been pushing it further into the social conscious of the United States as they attempt to fundamentally, permanently, and dare I say irreparably, transform these United States of America away from being a constitutionally endowed federalist representative republic into some sort of frothing at the mouth Fabian socialist leftist dystopia torn straight from the pages of an Orwellian nightmare. And again, ladies and gentlemen, all of this plays out in a very ugly capacity. It plays out as something that tells us just how detached from reality these leftists are. And when you really think about it, in an objective fashion, everything that these leftists have been doing is designed to purposefully weaken and undermine the country. Now, why is it that we allow this to occur? Why is it that we are bearing witness to this dirty game of identity politics, which is torn right out of the playbook of cultural Marxism? Why is this becoming such a huge thing in society today? We see it anywhere and everywhere. It is divisive, and it is done on purpose to try and get rid of the cohesive attributes and aspects of culture and society itself in order to put forth this insidious type of system that the left wants. Something that has no place in an open, honest, but above all free society like that of these United States of America. And so I want to move to what we're seeing with identity politics and this brouhaha. We see that literally all that Frederica Wilson cares about is her own fame here. And I wouldn't even go so far as to call it fame. I'd call it infamy, because what she is doing is infamous. What she is doing is shameful. It's deplorable. But after Trump went forth into the Twitter sphere and started attacking her using nicknames, he calls her Wacky Wilson, which I guess that's par for the course. It's turning this ugly incident into even uglier incidents, and it is giving this woman a greater amount of time in the limelight, which she does not deserve, to be quite frank. She really does not deserve that. And everything it says is that she is using the grief of the mother of a fallen soldier who happens to be a constituent of hers to position herself as to show her other constituents that, I'm standing here in staunch opposition. I am resisting the President of the United States of America. Well, what good does that do us? What good does that do for the good and decent, red-blooded American citizens from coast to coast and border to border in this once thriving and flourishing representative republic of ours? It does no good. And again, it just plays into the vile attributes and aspects that the frothing at the mouth Fabian socialist leftists are wanting to latch onto in the land of the free and the home of the brave. And again, it shows that they don't have a positive message to put forth. What are they creating? They can't. They cannot create, and so it's all about subterfuge and obfuscation of the truth and attempting to paint a picture of America as a heartless place led by a heartless leader. Now, I'm not a huge fan of Donald Trump, but in this case, I think that there is something really awful happening with respect to this attack. This story is being framed in a way by the rank and file of the graduates of Pavlov's School of Journalism for the salivating mainstream media in order to attempt to convince each and every one of us that the leadership of the United States is systemically racist. It's falling into the same garbage of political correctness that we saw come to the forefront and epicenter at the height of the summer of political correctness, which is what we here at Radio Aviation Excellence, the Wright Flyer, named the summer of 2015. This type of identity politics creates what is known in legal parlance and lexicon as positive discrimination. And essentially what it's trying to do is to say that anyone that disagrees with leftist tactics and strategies and policies, well, they're either sexist, racist, bigoted, hateful people. Think back to that whole term of the GOP war on women. You see, ladies and gentlemen, this is all part of an overarching tactic to divide and conquer the people of these United States of America in order to push forth with this grand scheme of the left to undermine all that we hold near and dear in these United States of America. And they are not about to back away from that. They are going to continue to double down on that because they believe that it gets them traction. Now, what is going to be interesting to see is what happens to Congresswoman Wilson in those looming midterm elections of 2018. Because as it is, we are approaching the mark where that's going to be just a year away. And so when we stop and think about it in that fashion, the question is, if it's a year away, are people going to remember? Is this going to be one of those things that sticks out in the minds of the American electorate? And that is a question that only time itself can prove. Time itself can answer. I would certainly hope that that's the case. I want people to remember this because essentially what this Congresswoman is doing is disgraceful. And yes, ladies and gentlemen, there is no more apt a term to describe what Frederica Wilson is doing here other than as disgraceful. She is disrespecting time-honored tradition in the heart of the land of the free and the home of the brave. And we can make no bones about it. The military and our servicemen and women are the best of us because they are willing to don the uniform of the United States Armed Forces in order to go out and defend our fundamental and inalienable God-given rights against enemies of all shapes and sizes. And let's face it, we do need a strong, robust, and vibrant military to defend our national security interests both at home and abroad. And that is exactly what happened to those 4 Green Berets. They were in Niger, and they were attempting to prevent terrorists from gaining even stronger footholds. And with the fact that Raqqa, the capital of the Islamo-fascist state, has fallen, we can rest assured, I fear, that ISIS is going to do everything they can, at least ideologically, to lash out at the United States of America, to attempt to make us cower in fear because they want to create their own cataclysmic event on the scale of 9/11, what we experienced some 16 plus years ago. And that tells us that there are these villainous forces out there, but there's also a villainous force working here in these United States of America the frothing at the mouth Fabian socialist leftists who are doing everything within their power to pit American citizen against American citizen in the hopes that we tear out each other's jugulars and bleed this nation to the point of anemia. And why is it that it comes to this? Why is it that we are facing this? We are facing this because we have grown complacent with respect to these people. The detente mentality that has gone through the rank and file of the gutless opposition party, or GOP, has essentially allowed this to go forth. Because they don't want to represent the best interests of their core constituency and base of the party. That's part of the reason why we here at the Wright Flyer have always said that we need to start looking at ourselves not as Republicans or Democrats, but as popular sovereigns of the longest contiguous constitutional republic, or uninterrupted running constitutional republic in the entire course of human events. And again, what all of this reminds me of is that great advice from that sagacious founding father of ours, Samuel Adams, when he said that if the United States of America ever hopes to remain being a strong, robust, and vibrant republic, it is absolutely imperative that the American people are a virtuous people. And that is what we have to strive for. And that is why it is so dangerous to have the twin cancerous doctrines of political correctness and moral relativism moving forth in the land of the free and the home of the brave, as it has been for generation after successive generation, because it serves to undermine the very aspects and attributes of what it is to be quintessentially American. And that in and of itself is an unfortunate thing and an unfortunate development. And it's an unwelcome one. Because what we have to always do is to be ready, willing, and able to stand up for our fundamental and inalienable God-given rights, because it's as my first officer, Jeremy Grapenton, and I have reiterated so many times on previous episodes of our state-of-the-art radio program, almost to the point of it reaching ad nauseum, that without our fundamental and inalienable God-given rights, we are truly left with nothing. And I do not believe that that is something which we can afford to allow to come to fruition in this great republic of ours. We, in our individual capacity as United States citizens, are duty-bound and obliged to protect those rights. Because if you look at the clear and concise language contained within the four corners of the preamble to our shared United States Constitution, you see that it states in no uncertain terms that we need to secure the blessings of liberty for ourselves and our posterity. That means for the up-and-coming generations, and indeed even those generations which have yet to be born. But I don't see that coming to the forefront when you have idiots like Frederica Wilson going out there and creating as much dissent as is humanly possible. It is an ugly, base thing to see, and it tells me that the left truly believes that they see a light at the end of the tunnel, and that means that, at least to their mind, that their victory is within grasp. That is what they're trying to aim for. That is what they are trying to force down our throats without our input, without our thoughts, without any inkling as to whether that is what we as a nation and people desire, and, ultimately whether that's good for us as a nation and people. And of course, I believe that it should be self-evident that it is not good for us as a nation. That this sort of chicanery is working to undermine the good and decent people of the United States of America at every instant that we encounter it here in the land of the free and the home of the brave. And let's tie this into the whole National Football League, NFL nonsense about those fools, those spoiled, pampered, rich professional athletes who are disrespecting and desecrating the flag of these United States of America. You see, all of it goes to a point of division and divisiveness. That is what this is all designed to do. That is the end goal and modus operandi of these frothing-at-the-mouth Fabian socialist leftists. Essentially, what they do, time and again, is work to try and strip and deprive us of all that matters in the land of the free and the home of the brave, to try and pigeonhole the entire American electorate into believing that these non-essential or penultimate issues are the ultimate concerns that we should have. And again, it's a bit of bait and switch. That's what it comes down to. It's a bit of a game of bait and switch, or a game of two-card Monte, where they want to be able to control the narrative. And it's, as we've stated numerous times before on previous episodes of our state-of-the-art radio program here at Radio Aviation Excellence, the Wright Flyer, that essentially what these people are doing is they are wanting to throw out so much subterfuge and play hide the ball so that they can tear down the nation, thereby opening up the path for them to be able to go forth and to redefine what this nation is. And we see that they do it through all of the avenues of popular culture. They do it through education. They do it through manipulation at all levels of government. And if you remember, all of this traces back to the Fabian Society itself, which traces its origins to 19th century Great Britain, where their original iconography was that of a wolf in sheep's clothing, so that they could move freely within society in general, which thereby allows them to have unfettered access to the pillars and reins of political power. You see, it's destructive. It's intellectually disingenuous. It was designed to be that way from the beginning, and it always works to undermine everything that is of great value and importance in these United States of America. And again, this goes right back to the warning that the father of our nation, George Washington, gave in his farewell address of 1792. And that is, we, in our individual capacity as United States citizens, should do everything within our power to prevent ourselves from breaking down into disparate and competing factions. Because the moment that we do that is the moment that we lose sight of those things that are critically important to us, those things that truly matter. And he stressed that what truly matters is our shared United States Constitution. Now, it may seem as though that has no connection or connotation with the topic of du jour that we're discussing on this Solo Flight Special Edition of our state-of-the-art radio program, but it has absolutely everything to do with it. Because these people that go out and try and whip up a sense of raw emotionalism, ratcheting up the tensions to the point of where the entire United States is in a delirium of hysteria, are the very souls who try and go forth to convince the American people that it's an antiquated document that's time to be thrown into the rubbish bin of history. But they are so dead wrong when they say that. It shows you just how vile and manipulative that these people are, and that they will stop at nothing. It's as that frothing-at-the-mouth Fabian socialist leftist Kat Sunstein had always said, never let a good crisis go to waste. Well, why would he say that? It's so that they can exploit this for their own ulterior motives, for their own political gain. They will do that time and again without any thought as to what this will do to the United States, both as a nation and people. And that in and of itself is a disgusting thing. That in and of itself is something that should never be tolerated in an open and honest, but above all free society like that of these United States of America. So when we keep all of that in mind and examine this under the totality of the circumstances and with a modicum of objectivity, we see that there is something greater to this. Now, when Secretary Kelly had responded to Frederica Wilson's response to him, he had essentially called her an empty barrel, saying that what she was saying was basically baseless and vile. She instantly came back and stated that this was a racist retort on the part of Kelly. Why in the hell is it the first thing that these leftists always do? They turn to that very threadbare race card. Why is it always that they go forth and want to proclaim that anyone and everyone who disagrees with them is racist? Well, it's as I pointed out earlier in the show, that what they are attempting to do here is the same thing that they have been attempting to do throughout the course of the past 150 plus years, ladies and gentlemen, and that is to latch on to this mindless rubbish of identity politics, of political correctness, and moral relativism, all designed with the explicit purpose of tearing this nation asunder from within. This is why Congresswoman Frederica Wilson, to my mind, is an unapologetic fool. She comes across almost as though she's incompetent. Clearly she's incompetent. That she's maybe even going senile. I mean, I don't want to cast base aspersions here, but what she's saying doesn't make a lick of sense to me, and it has no connection or connotation with reality or what we have been seeing here in this fast-paced modern society in which we live. No, what it is that she is going to try and push for her vile and disgusting agenda come hell or high water. Irrespective of whether it is true or not, that is what she's going to do. That is what she believes is, in her mind, a righteous course of action to take, when in fact nothing could be further from the truth. Because when you examine what she's doing, she is disrespecting the very path that we take to honor those brave men and women who have engaged in a selfless act of love and patriotism that is a shining example for each and every one of us in our capacity as United States citizens. She doesn't care about that. Why? Because she loathes and despises everything that the United States of America has ever stood for and will ever stand for. So all of that just ties directly into everything that we've seen come to the epicenter and surface from the get-go. And it's truly unfortunate that this is what is passing for political acceptance in the Democrat Party today. It's truly sad and unfortunate that this is what is coming to the epicenter of acceptable politics, because there are certain things which should never be politicized. And honoring the sacrifice of brave servicemen and women should be one of those areas that we do not politicize. It should be taboo to politicize that. Yet here we are. We see that the left and the graduates of Pavlov's School of Journalism for the salivating mainstream media, each and every one of them are out there attempting to politicize this. They are attempting to make political gain out of this. Shame on them for that. Shame on them for that, because that is unacceptable. That is intolerable. That is insufferable. And it should never occur in the heart of the land of the free and the home of the brave. But it is. It is because they want to push harder. It is because they want America to be divided. It is because they want to control the narrative, and ultimately they want to make America suffer. That's what it comes down to. And it should never come to that. Now, folks, I know this episode's going to be a bit short, but that's because it's a bit of an experimental one at this juncture in time. But I'm going to go ahead and call an end to the show. I want to thank you all for tuning in. If you have any questions, comments, or concerns, or even topic suggestions, please feel free to leave them either here on our YouTube page or on our Google Plus page or even on our Facebook page. And on top of that, I invite you to follow us over on Twitter with the Twitter handle @RadioAviationEX. Once again, ladies and gentlemen, that is @RadioAviationEX, and there you will find the departure board that lists my personal Twitter account, as well as the personal Twitter account of my first officer, Jeremy Grapenton. You will also find the Blogspot account, and you will find the link to the Cafe Press account. So yes, folks, I want you to go ahead and take a look at that. Give us a little bit of support so that we can continue to fly you over the friendly airwaves, leaving you with an indelible yet pure sense of enlightenment, as we always strive to do here at Radio Aviation Excellence, the Wright Flyer. Once again, ladies and gentlemen, this is your captain, Randy Wright, and I want to thank you for flying with us, and I hope to see you again next time. Please do take care.